All right, hello everyone. My name is Jamie Lee. I'm a strategic advisor with Leonard McDowell, and today we're talking about the value proposition and an overview of Clear software, the Clear process, and the Clear application. And so we're going to start off a little bit by showing you how the system connects from a technology overview perspective, from a software integration perspective, and give you just a quick tour of the how does this thing work. And right after that, we're going to jump into an even more important question, which is the why Clear software. And then quickly, we're going to move to the outcomes that really define what is the value proposition for Clear software as an investment in your business. And finally, we'll actually tour the software, not from a perspective of making you fully proficient in the software or from a training perspective as if you were a user, but to give you a cursory overview of the functions and features that go along with making Clear the right choice for your company. So with that, taking a look at Clear software and where it fits in a software stack, if you will, from an information technology perspective, Clear is a platform by which you can run your business. And many companies in the last 2-3 decades have gone before and purchased platform software from various vendors such as SAP, PeopleSoft, Oracle. I could go on down the list. And many of these platforms come along with pre-built solutions that were kind of aiming for the average business, meaning they weren't aiming for the exceptional business that was looking to be excellent in many ways. In terms of customer service or quote to cash or procure to pay, or even in the operations and accounting or the back office, as it were. So companies for the last couple of decades have been buying these software packages and deploying them regardless of the waste that is inherent in the design of those packages. And because they've been deploying them, they've been expanding their use. And so the waste in those packages and the screens and the tedious nature of traversing the data that's been pre-built into those packages by an SAP, by an Oracle, and so on and so forth, have been consumed by our companies today. And our companies, as a result, are inefficient. And much of that waste is hard to move or get around when you're trying to grow your company and drive efficiencies, but you're dealing with software that you can't manipulate, and you certainly can't apply a lean philosophy to if you're looking to scale your company more efficiently into the future. And so what Clear does is Clear sits on top of all of those packages, not containing all the algorithms in those packages, say, for example, an MRP engine, which is readily present in many of these enterprise resource planning systems, or commonly known as ERPs. What it will do, Clear will sit across these platforms, as you're seeing in the diagram here, and drive integration into those vendor platforms, vendor-specific platforms. And the integration will be bringing that data to the forefront of the process into the business user's hands and really putting them in control of their own destiny. Because what sits atop the Clear process functionality, which is the integration engine to many of these platforms, is the Clear Work business process management component. And that is a configurable component by end users in the business that allows them to add and drop fields really to make the efficiency of that process, task, or activity that much more. And today, as I mentioned, the SAP, Oracle, PeopleSoft, you can go down possibly even to Workday, Salesforce, and so forth, Plex, and some of the other mid-tier platforms that companies run on today. They have not leaned out their user interface. They have not leaned out the data model by that which is necessary to just run your business. So as we think about selling, we think about buying, we think about operations, we think about accounting, we think about taking care of our human capital. And then we think about data management across this myriad of platforms that exist in companies today. There's a really nasty complexity that exists today. And many CEOs and CFOs and CIOs are trying to get around that complexity to take their businesses to the next level. And it's very hard, it's very tedious, it's very arduous to get their teams wrapped around solving for that problem in aggregate. And so in aggregate, Clear sits atop of these solutions, as I mentioned before, really streamlining those workflows and really information flows and master data updates. And we all know that good data in is required to actually have a good process coming out. And so having quality data up front is something that Clear excels in, and pushing that data back into this myriad of systems is key to having accurate data for your customer, for your supplier, and most certainly for your operations. And so ultimately key to the performance of your company. So we're really looking at Clear to make your business software work for you. Well, how do you do that? So you've made these investments in all these different platforms. You've put forward the millions of dollars of implementation, and you're still not getting out what your business investment or your return on investment was looking to get. And so you have the complexity of multiple screens, various data sources. And so Clear is designed to bring the data out of those platforms and integrate it in a way that you're not looking at apples and oranges. You're actually comparing apples to apples in terms of your dashboards, in terms of your orders and your transactions that really drive satisfaction for your end customer. And so if it were material codes, if it were customer codes, if it were customer pricing, maybe vendor pricing on certain raw materials that you're buying, Clear is designed to elevate that data regardless of whether one business unit's operating on Oracle or one's on PeopleSoft or one's on SAP, and bring it to a common understanding to a nimble team that's working in the business, trying to do more with less, and they are struggling with jumping between spreadsheets and wrapped up in trying to convert data to get a common picture to make a business decision that you're likely bringing your teams into a conference room to look at profit and loss statements and balance sheets and forward-looking spend and say, okay, what are we going to do about this? Your teams are struggling going across this myriad of systems to bring that data together, and that's where Clear excels. Is essentially we're simplifying work at the top of the pyramid of information, from the database at its lowest level, whether that's in the cloud or whether it's on-premise databases, to the web browser at the top level, and even to the mobile and remote worker, which has the smaller devices that's looking for more ergonomically, pleasing look at data and flow, and really simplicity in how work tasks move from left to right until they're complete for your business. So that said, on the bottom right, you can see there's just a pictorial of how many, many screens in SAP or PeopleSoft or Oracle are coming into one view that's really leaned out, looking more simplistic and trying to guide the user in a simple fashion. So with that, I want to talk to you about the why. Let's have some clear talk. Okay. Number one is we have to be asking ourselves, why would we ever do this? Why would we even engage? You said you bought all these platforms. We're stuck with these platforms. How do we integrate? Isn't Clear another platform? It's actually a work management development platform. So it's a process platform. It's less about the database, as it were. It's less about the information modeling. It's less about the cardinality of database design and whether a purchase order has one-to-many purchase items or a sales order has one-to-many purchase items, and are those technically corrected, linked up accurately. It's more about the integration and reach into those pools of data. Clear puts data as a strategy for a company right up front, and data is it's been referred to as the next oil. It's the fuel in the engine of many businesses, and the internet has been the great flattener. And so all the talk now is to speed to your data, speed to problem solving, and how are we problem solving? What's the logic of how we're improving things in our business, and can we trust that data? Can we get to that data, and can we harmonize that data and have a consistent look and feel so that we know we're looking at apples to apples, as I mentioned earlier. So why do that? Why simplify your business process? It seems logical. It seems almost common sense. But specifically, you really want to simplify your business process to get to a scale. You want to drive efficiency. And it is a little bit of doing more with less until you can do everything with nothing. But we all believe and we all know that software is a faster automation than people can be a faster automation. So if you can take software tasks and automate those, say through intelligent, processing automation, or what was commonly referred to as robotic processing automation, not just but a few months ago. We want to drive efficiency through that automation so that when our business grows, we're growing at a cheaper scale, and we're reaping the profits and expanding our operating margins as a result. So we're doing more with less, we're driving efficiency, we're able to do things like shared services, we're able to do tasks in the field for the delivery of our products and services at a cheaper rate, and even more efficient rate because there's less time involved, so you can do things faster. And so I like the quote on the right here by ServiceNow, and it's absolutely spot on, is that integration really drives the complexity out of what we know to be the iceberg. Is there's more happening below the scenes than you know of, and your IT groups know it, than meets the eye. And so the purchasing groups, the sales groups, the operations managers, the production schedulers, the shipping docs, they are doing a lot across these screens to just get product out the door in a compliant and regulated way, and keeping the data consistent and of quality nature and timely updated so that the business can measure and run itself. And so getting rid of that iceberg is key. But the IT groups know the iceberg. They know the ins and outs of the iceberg. They know these databases, and they know where they're stored and how they operate. Clear sits on top of all that, and again, puts power back in the hands of the business, really kind of puts you back in control of your destiny in how you can lean out your processes and look at a much more ergonomically pleasing user interface that transfers across any of the devices, completely responsive design, and goes with the business wherever the business is at. And today we know that remote work is a key thing to sustaining our economy. And many people are working at home and learning how to work at home and use these digital tools. Right now is the time to be bettering their working world by improving the designs and flow of their work through something like Clear Process and Clear Work. And so the why is very clear. We're either driving efficiency so that we can scale into the future at a more profitable rate, or we're driving integration so that we have reach to the oil and the fuel in our system, that which is data, so that we can see into the future, so that we can drive prediction and we can drive analytical foresight as to what's around the corner in the economy, what's around the corner in our markets. And, specifically, what's around the corner for our people? Are we going to drive a better work experience for them? If so, why not deploy Clear? Why stick with the old ERP situation? Why not make a change now? So that said, let's have just one more piece of Clear talk before we get into the system demonstration. Why? Why not have better outcomes? CEOs, I love this quote by McKinsey, CEOs have a consistent top priority, which is harness technology to jumpstart growth, speed to market, and fostering innovation. Their companies are dealing and riddled with risk in their current infrastructure stack because they haven't reinvented. They haven't jumped off the log to the next thing. They've held back for cash flow reasons, capital investment reasons. They don't see the return. Their shareholders won't appreciate it. Their employees or their culture won't live right by it. But they're looking now, eyes wide open with, no, we have to do something. We are now in the decade of 2020 to 2030, and there will be a lot of change with the promise of artificial intelligence coming forward, blockchain, DevOps, cloud efficiency and hyperscaling. We need to be able to treat systems and services like electricity. Clear puts you clearly in that space in the cloud and helps you with that along the way, and should be in a position for these CEOs to really drive transformational value in their back office and front office operations, both on the demand and the supply side. But really, I'd like to leave you with this before we jump into the system is the Shell CIO said it best. Start with the business outcome. We're going to think about profits. We're going to think about efficiencies. We're going to put a dollar sign on that, which what we're going to go do with software and start to automate for our own business, if not just for our employees' health and energy along the way. We're going to get measurable return out of this. And that's what Clear has demonstrated in all of its value propositions. And you can start with quote to cash value propositions. You can start with the procure to pay value proposition. So you're thinking about both sides of the supplier partnerships on both ends of your supply chain, and very important partners, no doubt, improving their world, making it more efficient, integrating software to their software through these APIs that Clear has in their library of in their toolkits, ready to deploy. You're talking about really building the digital bridge between partnerships, and that's key for a very connected world going forward. So like the Shell CIO said, we need to look at the data we need, start with that and work backwards. And let's bring that data to the forefront using technology that's necessary. Not every technology, but that technology which is necessary to bring it to the forefront and get rid of that iceberg and get that complexity out of our environment and really free up the process for our employees to own again. So with that, that is the Clear outcome from my perspective and value proposition for Clear software. So I'm going to switch over into the system. Please raise your hand if you can't see the system at this point. But this is the entry screen into the Clear platform. And so I'm not going to train you as if you're a user on this, but I am going to highlight some of the features that make it an interesting proposition for your company and for your employees. Real quickly, on the left, we have what our icon-driven looks at functionality. And that's honestly where a lot of the web design is going today, is in simplistic icons. You're probably not familiar with the thing called a hamburger button, but that is a technology term that's used by many developers that talks about features like settings and accounts and profiles that go behind that functionality. So we have those types of industry standard icons on the left, and that make it easy for your employees to want to come back and want to use this software over. It's just literally the simplicity of small, very simple pictures that point a person back to functionality that are important for their business process. And so there's a real simple feature here on the left, and its ease in design is it's to allow you to expand that and see what's behind it. Note, if you're a user of SAP or Oracle or Salesforce, you'll probably be familiar with menu paths. All of those ERP packages are very tedious and very arduous in traversing menu paths or transaction codes to actually do one's work. And so because of that, Clear's been designed to point back to the features that are specifically required to drive a business, back to the simplicity of tasks that are required to process a sales order, to process a quote. And you can see on down the line here, we can create customers, we can create sales orders, we can create quotes, we can work with our pricing, we can look at a customer's deliveries, we can look at their invoices and kind of have a 360 view here for a customer. Wouldn't that be great if you're a small to medium business or even a large multi-billion-dollar business and you have a customer service group that is picking up the phone and having the phone pop the customer's information right here in front of the screen, which Clear is currently doing with many IVR providers today. You know, when you call 1-800 and you press 1, they know who you are, they have all your details at their fingertips, and they're having a very passionate and energetic, ready to serve you customer conversation because that agent has your data in their hands and can manipulate it at their discretion without calling in a supervisor, putting you on hold, figuring out how they're going to process something in their back office to serve you as a customer. That's a huge value prop if you ask me. And it's the Clear process that makes that simple and putting that back in the business owner's hands to service the customer in that way. There are other things and utilities that go along, like mass upload, which gives you the ability to push your pricing into all those subsystems without having to go to each subsystem. Very feature rich and very important. It's very important that when we do make price updates in our companies that they hit the systems at the timing they're supposed to hit the systems. If you've forewarned the customer and you're going to provide a price increase or even discounts, you want to be able to push those into your subsystems and make them effective, because your profit and loss statement is looking for that in the future, no doubt. And in particular, down here, your sales performance is looking at that. So looking for those improvements. So we might look at our sales by bookings, by month, by time, by revenue. All of these are customizable so that you get a perspective look at your business right here in the same vein that your customer service folks and your salespeople are working in to manage the front side of your business. So no more complex than that. It really doesn't get much simpler than that. There are certain things like numbers and dates and dollars and timelines that you need to understand to manage the health of your business. All of that is captured here across these various features in the sales, really the quote to cash functionality. And so because we've done that, because we've structured the tool in such a way, this sits on top of all that other garbage, I'll say, all those other algorithms and all the average programming that a Salesforce, an Oracle, an SAP, and many of those other platforms have aimed for, because they're aiming for all industries to fit all functionality, to fit really the average of all business processes out there. They have not leaned out their systems to really simplify. And so as I mentioned, each company is holding that complexity and that waste, as it were, in their hands today, and they're looking for ways out of it. And that's why Clear is and should be the choice to get there. So that said, I'll move on to purchasing. This is the other side, is your supply chain. Is you have we've talked about customers, we've talked about the partnership there. Now we're looking at our suppliers. And so our suppliers are first and foremost, they bring us goods that allow us to convert those goods into products that our customers want. And to get those goods, whether it's office supplies or whether it's raw materials, we need to be able to requisition. We can look at our vendor master data. We can look at requisitions. We can even create requisitions from what we call in the industry a punch out. So it's not configured here for you today, but the Amazon punch out, the Office Depot punch out, the Home Depot punch outs, you can order directly through Clear into your back office general ledger and accounting systems right here through a punch out and link right to the Amazon website as an example, or an Office Depot website. Let's say you're ordering, boxes of paper. And so the punch outs would show here. If I had that demo for you today, it's in another login I'm not in today. But that's as simple as the data flows. Again, it's about integration more than it is having 17 different screens. It's about one dashboard and one view into your business. And that's what we're presenting to you here today, is purchasing, purchase orders, purchase requisitions. The whole, I'll call it vendor or supplier 360 is here. So you have your customer 360, you have your supplier 360. I can't think of two more important things to have in the hands of employees that are taking care of the flow of your cash in your business, whether that's cash in inventory or cash in payables or cash in receivables, then right here atop all your systems. No need to go out and spend millions and millions of dollars making an ERP transformation to go from 16 ERPs down to one ERP. Leverage the power of integration, have the business software work for you, and bring that integration forward into your key supplier and partner connections here, your digital connections with your customers and suppliers. We also have vendor payments. We also have a requisition work list. And the work list is a key topic here. You need to understand this. Work lists are very key for folks and processes that aren't fully automated yet, because a work list represents batch management. It represents a batch of work that has to be done and or processed cognitively by an employee that's in an activity or a task or a business process. And so they need work lists by which to work. Okay, a work list has to have a line item in it that needs to go left to right, top to bottom. It needs to go through a step from status of draft to finished and transaction posted. And many times those transactions are updating our general ledger, and the general ledger is, of course, many times in your back-end ERP system. And many companies are rolling up those ERP systems into systems like Blackline or Hyperion, or they might even be working with other platforms that extend your accounting situation and your key performance indicators. And so work lists are sitting in every worker's and should be sitting in every worker's inbox, really, and really the first screen they're looking at is because that's the work they're processing that day, and the timeline and the tack time it takes for them to process that transaction and move through the system ought to be simplified, and it ought to be quick until it can be fully automated. So Clear leverages the power of the work list as a concept in an ergonomically and eye-pleasing design, and a simple design to read and not be so tediously concerned with reading a lot. You know, many of these systems have so many fields on it. It's really not eye candy as it used to be sold many years ago. It's really garbage, and it's a waste of time. And that's some of the waste I'm talking about. Many of these systems already having baked in for many of your companies. And so the work list helps us process and move items down and through and out to, posting cost of goods sold and recording in our back-end systems for profitability reporting. Each of our key partner areas, whether it's customer key partner or vendor key partner, has dashboarding. So we'll be bringing the dials, as it were, the needles, the odometers, to reference the car dashboard, your odometer, your tachometer, your speedometer, the speed at which your business is going in this particular supply chain area would be shown here as it was in the sales function for selling. We might look at our PO work list. We might look at PO status. And I could query the system here, but again, it's not meant to make you a user of the system or to give you a cursory overview at this point. Material mappings are key. Many ERPs in the back end of ERP data management have SKUs or stock keeping units, material masters that don't equate. So they're not equivalent. They're not apples to apples. You may have cardboard over here that doesn't match cardboard over here. And so material mapping allows you to bring that information topside and give it the same look. So how much cardboard do we have on hand? Well, we have 10,000 pounds of it, and it's all over here in this particular state or this particular region of the world. And so mapping and bringing that information topside is key, as data is a key strategy for many companies. So that's just a quick overview of the procure to pay functionality. Let's jump next to the finance functionality. So now we're talking finance and accounting. We're talking receivables, we're talking payables, we're talking cost center management, profit center management. We get into some custom things that we have provided in terms of a certain industry that require payment lots and return lots, but we allow for the ability to do mass edit in journals. We allow for the ability to look at and define your general ledger accounts and cost accounts. So, there's talk of a universal journal across a company. Is why can't I have a universal journal in every ERP? Why, if we acquire a business, one of the first things we want to do is map that general ledger into our environment so that we can look at our newly acquired business and look at their cash flow, their profit and loss statement, and their balance sheet through the lenses that we look at our own company. And so this is a way to do that by establishing a chart of accounts through general ledger, a cost center hierarchy that makes sense to the corporate company, as it were, and then start to look at receivables and so forth that are coming in. Very important for cash management and working capital turns. And so we also can look at financial postings in each of those ledgers, and we can look at updating mass, like I mentioned on the pricing side, on the selling side, is you can look at doing mass upload across those ERP systems from accounting perspective. We can also, I'm going to skip over revenue netting right now. It's a more complex topic to explain, but we can look at project reporting and capital projects and how are those projects doing, because they're all booking entries into those sub ERPs in this business unit here in Europe or this business unit in Asia. So I can bring that project mapping topside for me at the corporate headquarters, potentially as a CFO to look at. Beyond that, we can look at other reporting areas. I won't go through all the tabs, but we can dive into other accounting features that really bring, Clear really brings those accounting functions to the top rather than having those multitude of menus in each one of those ERP systems where you can go into down a rabbit trail on many of the menu paths and really not get much value of looking at your numbers in the way that Clear can bring to the forefront. And so let's dive into the employee side. So you might have multiple HR systems. Perhaps you've been on an acquisition spree and you've bought system after system, and you're looking maybe to take that to the cloud and have a common vision into maybe your timesheets, maybe your service industry, and you have consultants and you're looking at booking time and figuring out how to bill your clients. And so you have multiple time reporting systems or expense reporting. Your employees have credit card spend, and you're just trying to get it to the top side where you can see it and measure it. You might want to bring your system or all that data and that transaction set into Clear and report it up through our HR capability here in terms of reporting that. Same with expense, as I mentioned, looking at your master data too from an employee perspective. They might have paid time off. They have timesheets, as I mentioned. You may have certain attachments about those employees that you want to keep resident in the cloud and accessible for remote access for your employees that are remote. The production area is another one to be concerned about. Many of these ERP packages and systems that are running your manufacturing systems are all these disparate little applications that have grown up for the last 3 decades, and all under a different brand name. Some are small, some are large, some are hundreds of thousands of dollars to implement, and some are multi-million. What the production functionality does in this avenue is said, okay, we have a supply chain. We're doing something for our customer. We're selling, we're buying, we're accounting, we're taking care of our employees, and now we're producing. So what is it that we're producing and how are we producing? The ERP systems generally keep your bill of materials, your work centers, your activity rates for your product costing, and your production orders by which you're going to produce and confirm against so that you can record cost of goods sold, so that you can relieve inventory and convert that capital into some level of output that you're looking to get compensated on by your customer. And so the production side brings all that production activity up topside in Clear, whether it's Oracle or PeopleSoft or SAP version XYZ, or maybe you have 17 different versions of SAP. Clear brings all that topside so that potentially a central or maybe decentral but common group can look at your production schedules across the board, regardless of what ERP system it's in. I'll give you an example. So here's a production order that was created on February 10th of this year. And it will tell me that it has phase 10 through phase 100. So these are the steps of the production. We're going to release it. We're going to do first entry. We're going to enter the water consumption and so on. And then we're going to report our end time for the production process that was being followed. Well, also down here, we can look at materials being consumed, which is that bill of material that I mentioned. We can look at confirmations along the way. It looks like it's had 1 confirmation to date. We can look at where components are stored, and we can look at any, standard operating procedures perhaps that are attached inside that production order for our employees on the shop floor to access. But for right now, we just look at the details of the production order, knowing that this might have been a production order out of our SAP system. It might have been a production order out of our Oracle system. At this point, we don't care. And that's where the value of Clear lies. Is Clear has the library of APIs to let integration do the work for you, to let your business software do the work for you, rather than you doing the work, jumping through Excel hell and putting a Excel worksheet together and a workbook together to store out on a OneDrive channel in your Office 365 environment that might be shared with the next production order person or production scheduler in some other business unit in some other part of the world, so that they can put it together in a spreadsheet and bring that together so that your information can wait and wait and wait for you to make a decision in a world that is flat because of the internet, that's trying to accelerate and get to decision making through better speed and quality of data input. And so that, again, is where Clear excels. It brings it topside. We don't worry about the versions of SAP. We don't worry about a multi-million-dollar ERP conversion. We don't worry about taking the business units offline and diverting the resources that are in those business units away from serving the customer, from creating the product, from getting it out and performing to the levels that we're looking for them to perform. We don't worry about that. What we do is we worry about the simplicity of the process and bringing that data topside, as we're seeing here from a production perspective. So we've been through selling, we've been through procuring, we've been through accounting, we've been through employees and some of the features there, and now we're talking production again. So we can look at things specific to materials, goods movements and materials. And remember, all these systems are trapping those goods movements because the accounting functions underneath them have to record those movements for scrap issuance, for debits and credits between those accounts of moving from finished goods to raw materials and so forth. So we can look at all those goods movements. We can look topside at all the shipments, things that are due. How would you like to come into your company every day and look at all the shipments due across your global organization, regardless of the system that was housing the details around that shipment, where it's supposed to go, to whom it's supposed to go, when it's supposed to go, how much of it's supposed to go? Wouldn't it be nice to correlate all that up and through one of our dashboard utilities that you simply apply here and look at whether you're moving the needle or not for your business performance. Same can be true for equipment on the shop floor. Same can be true for repair orders on that equipment, bringing your plant maintenance and your preventive maintenance up topside for your company. Same could be true for a work order. Maybe it's a work order in the field versus a repair order, say, inside your company. And again, we have the ability to do mass uploads for data and get that data get those data changes that are in the production environment. In the production ordering and manufacturing environment out to those disparate systems through one function. Then we have the ability to expand on a feature we call decks, which are another topic that I'm not going to explain right now. It gets into some complexity that we can eliminate in your subsystems by bringing data topside and giving you a real information look at your business. So beyond that, we have other tools that we're adding. There are additional features for specifics in different industries, but we're not really doing that right now in this overview. We're not going to talk to that. So at this point, that's been an overview of not only the user interface, but some key features and functions of information flow and workflow processing across what would be a typical supply chain and business flow to your customer from your suppliers, converting inventories and pushing those out through deliveries and doing the accounting and so forth. So at that point, I'm going to turn and look at my chat to see what questions we have and see if I can answer those. Give me 1 second. Okay, so question comes to us, what verticals does this tool make sense for? Who are the best prospects at organizations to talk to regarding the software? Anybody in any vertical that you can point to that is looking to lean out a business process is somebody to talk to. Because of the nature of this tool, you can deploy it by function, as I've shown, sales, purchasing, finance. You can carve out any one of those features and make it directly applicable to any business. Let's say, for example, it was a hospital. Hospitals are doing buying. Hospitals have subsystems. Hospitals do accounting. And hospitals are full of complexity. Healthcare environment, let's stem off of hospitals, the broader healthcare. Doctors' offices do the same. Let's jump into education. Universities in particular are very messy when it comes to procurement. Let's talk about sales. The selling of the chemical industry, the chemical manufacturing. They sell barrels and barrels of goods. They sell plastics additives and so forth. You're selling, and large part of them run SAP and Oracle. You can look at automotive, large ERP clients, and some of them are smaller and they run mid-tier ERPs like Plex. And so they have bigger reach into their machine equipment and so forth. All of that information flow, where you have information flow that is complex and taking too long, and we call it tack time, to run from left to right in a process. It takes hours, minutes, plus days, plus weeks. Add all that together and you get something done. You have an opportunity for this tool to go in and to make efficient. Remember, let's go back to the why, clear talk here. We have efficiencies so that we can scale. We have integration that's going to drive reach to our data. And then we have outcomes that we're going to clearly go after and clearly return. 3 things, real easy value prop. So next question is, what tools are available to help manage the adoption by the company's workforce? In other words, keep them out of the parent applications, SAP, Oracle, Salesforce, and keeping them in clear. So the tools are this. The business process management engine inside of this allows the user to actually configure the system. Clear would probably be along, or an implementer or partner of Clear would probably be along early on to do what we call a value stream map, or we want to clearly understand the process without too much of writing an encyclopedia, so to speak, because we see the same thing company after company and really industry by industry. The problems we're trying to solve are very similar. But the adoption is really very easy. A lot of these tools that you're seeing here are almost intuitive. I know I'll definitely say intuitive, that I've had folks come to me and say, I really don't need to be shown much more. I've kind of got it. And so in times like this, where you're deploying a solution like this, I'm not surprised if many of today's users, and remember, everybody's working, a lot of people are working remote at this point, are basically saying, I've got this. Let me just work with it for a little while. I don't need the long classroom style education. And so tools like WalkMe are training tools that we can apply on top of Clear. And the walkme.com, something you want to look at. It literally just walks you field by field and tells you what to do with the field. If you're of the education that you need that sort of kind of drive me through it one time and then let me run, those tools are available. And so the stickiness of this user interface, I can assure you, is something that our users have said, give me more of this and less of what the other vendors have to supply. And so what I've always looked for in the past is, what are our users, what are give clamoring for? What are they asking to be brought into their environment? What do they keep coming back to? What would give them their energy back in their day? And it's a lot of it has to do with taking the tedious nature out of traversing menus and transaction codes, and more data that tires me out, that isn't pertinent to my job, but was pertinent to the company that built these systems to begin with. So they just left it on the screen thinking it was a selling tool, when in fact it's turned in the opposite at this time in technology history and where we're at in the efficiencies of how companies and software automation should be running. It's turned against them. And so Clear helps lean that out and really give us one place to go to, which should keep businesses out of those subsystems that they've gone ahead and purchased and spent millions on in the past. And so another question, can you briefly mention the cost, about $250K annually per enterprise client? Is that it? Does that allow them to reduce labor costs, increase revenue, reduce risk? Does it allow them to reduce or allow them to get into the markets they could not otherwise? Let's take the first piece. Does it allow them to reduce labor costs? Yes, but I'm going to say it this way. It absolutely frees up labor. It absolutely makes a process more productive. So what do you do with that productivity as a company? Many companies are turning and leaving this fixed mindset and growing into this growth mindset. And so what they're looking to do is not necessarily, say, hey, we're coming to lean your process out. We're actually coming to lean it out so that you have more energy back. And yes, we'll call it productivity, but we're not sending you home. What we're going to do is we're going to take everything you knew and we're going to scale it. And we're going to turn your passion and your energy onto using this tool to lean out other processes. So essentially, where IT has been constrained in the past, they've been servant to many and master to none, or master of many and servant to none, however that saying goes. They've been facing too many things. And so they've really not been able to excel in the one thing that is really of interest to most CEOs, and that's digital transformation to scale efficiently, to use integration to get reach to our data, and to hit the outcomes I'm looking to hit as a CEO. I have shareholders, they're looking for things and no one's listening to me. Why? Why isn't the IT group driving that? Why aren't they pointed to that? Oh, they're busy managing their data centers and they're stuck in a on-premise world and they need to get to cloud. Well, I would like to give them this solution, get them there so that the businesses can excel, so the businesses can be heroes again with their own data, and it can allow them to have the energy to go increase revenue, to have data at their fingertips to do a customer 360, data at their fingertips to negotiate with a supplier on their position, system on top of their systems to reduce risk. And you might say, well, how does a system like this sitting atop those other systems, isn't more risk introduced by adding integration complexity? I would tell you that having those complex systems with all the inefficiencies baked into your business is actually a greater risk than putting Clear on top of them through solid foundational, proven, gone there, been there, and done that level of interfaces through application programming interfaces. There's a greater risk in holding those legacy systems and not getting the data and value out of the data, those prior investments. That's a greater risk than putting Clear on top of it and really kind of getting you back into ownership of your data and process again. So the next question is, which role, organization, or stakeholder has the most to gain by implementing this integrated framework to remove the boundaries between process and data? Great question. Where we've seen the most success so far, and I don't know if this is a data point on where certain industries are or where certain companies are in those industries. Everybody's at a little different competition level. Some are far behind, some are up to date, let's say, but have a long ways to go to bring the future of technology forward. But I can assure you that the future of software is in automation, and the future of business processes is in automation. And the key to holding it all together is data. So data has to be the strategy. So data in the front side is very important with your customers. Data in the procurement side with your suppliers is very important. And in fact, that's where we've seen the most return on investment is order to cash and procure to pay. And traditionally, I'll tell you from my experience in transforming companies and transforming information technology functions for the betterment of the business, working with lean, is there is a lot of waste in the upfront customer handling systems, and there's a lot of waste in how much it takes us to procure and the effort it takes us to procure goods these days. So that's where I think the biggest swing for the money is and the return is right now in terms of talking about those three things we discussed, which was efficiency for scale, the integration for data reach, and then of course the outcomes for our voice of customer, our end customers, and certainly our shareholders and our businesses. So with that, I'll ask you, give it just 30 seconds here, maybe for another question on the chat. And we're coming up on 10 minutes till the hour, so I have no more questions at this time. I will close by saying I hope you've enjoyed this Clear Talk and this overview, albeit cursory, of the platform and the opportunity that exists for your business. And I wish you the best in going out and improving your performance. And please think of Clear Software as you do. Take care.
Thank you.